today I'm going to share with you the fundamentals of these two types of tenure so that you guys can decide on which type of tenure to choose when you decide to buy that property. So before that, we need to know a few things, right? One of it is that land is owned by states. Okay, state government. So once the land is being disposed or alienated, the land will be either held in perpetuity or we call freehold, right? Or in a certain amount of terms or leases. Okay, we call it leasehold, which upon the expiry of the lease would be returned back to the state authority if there's no renewal or extension of the lease. So let's talk about freehold first. So freehold is coined as ownership in perpetuity or aka forever, and it is one of the most sought after tenure or ownership in Malaysia. So let's talk about the pros first. So one of the pros would be it is much more secure compared to leasehold, as the owner of the freehold property or land would have more control over the land or property itself. Also, it is deemed to be more valuable as it comes with lesser restrictions, right, compared to the leasehold. And during the transfer of title, there would be less hassle and limitations, and it would normally take lesser time to complete the whole transfer of title process as compared to leasehold, right, which normally is 3 + 1 months. And in the long run, we say like 30 to 50 years time frame, the value would normally not be affected by the tenure itself. Unlike leasehold, it is deemed to be more favorable, or it is easier to obtain financing from banks. So among the cons of freehold would be the higher entry price for the same type of property compared to the leasehold counterparts. And since it comes with higher entry price, right, including the acquisition cost, thus normally it comes with lesser facilities and amenities by the developers to the house buyers. And subsequently, the rental yield would normally be lower compared to leasehold properties, since the entry price of the same property, right, when you compare property A and property B, and all the specs are the same, right? But the type of tenure for A will be freehold, for B will be leasehold, and in this case, right, the rental yield of the leasehold property will be higher. Why? Because the entry cost is lower than a freehold property. And one of the common misconceptions is that freehold really means forever, right? There's actually exceptions, whereby under the enforcement of LAA, Land Acquisition Act, the land or the property can actually be acquired with the purpose for public benefits, right, such as building a highway or MRTs, public transportations. So it's still not a true 100% ownership in a way. Now let's talk about leasehold. So leasehold comes with lease, right? And in Malaysia context, we would normally see lease terms with 30 years, 60 years, 99 years, 999 years. So among the pros of leasehold would be the lower entry price cost compared to freehold property with the same specs. And with that reason, it means it comes with a higher rental yield as compared to the freehold counterparts. On top of that, it also normally comes with more facilities and amenities due to the lower cost of acquisition for that particular development. Now, among the cons of leasehold, and we would add a few bits of info about leasehold as well. Because first of all, we have the lease terms, right? When it's going to be expired, it will be automatically revert back to the state authority if there's no renewal or extension of the lease. And normally there would be more restrictions on the usage and planning of the particular property and land. And if you wish to actually extend, right, or renew, you need to pay a premium, which is considerably quite high cost. So here are some formulas on how to calculate the premium needed to renew the Lease, right, in KL and Selangor. And for your information, right, for Selangor homes, there's actually an option to pay a premium of just 1,000 ringgit, right, as offered by the state government, provided that the owner must stay in that property for the duration of the entire lease, and it is only applicable for a residential property in Selangor. And after that, they would have a registrar caveat on the property to ensure that the owner cannot transfer the property to the other party. Of course, the most common known cons of leasehold would be the longer duration to transfer a title, whereby you must need the state authorities' consent, and it normally took a longer time, ranging from 6 months or more than even 1 year time. And there's a small misconception is that leasehold normally deems to be less valuable. It makes sense in a way only when the property comes with a lesser tenure. Say the remaining lease only left 30 years or 50 years, less than that. Then for the bank, it would deem to be not so attractive, okay, or to be risky for the banks to finance that property. Of course, it depends on each bank's requirements, and financing would be harder for a leasehold property or land if the lease is lesser than 30 years normally. So here's the bonus. Actually, for leasehold property, it can be converted into a freehold property, right? A freehold tenure. And some of them we call it restricted freehold, which might still have certain restrictions, such as on the transfer of the title. For example, there are Shang Villa in Kelana Jaya, which successfully converted from their leasehold tenure into a freehold tenure. And just to share a bit from investment point of view, which would be better. So personally for me, if you want to calculate from a point of view of rental yield, then leasehold would be a more favorable options as compared to freehold. But in terms of subsale, if the tenure or lease is more than 50 years, I would say, then normally it is not much difference as compared to freehold, unless it's less than that, right? Less than 50 years or even 30 years of lease remaining. So what you can do, you can just basically renew the lease, right? And then you sell it off. In a summary, each of the tenure got their own pros and cons. It's not fully one-sided. That's number one. Number two is that which to choose, right? When you decide to purchase a property, depends on the purpose of why you are buying. And it is not a case that freehold always win against leasehold, whereby when you look at the best performing properties in Malaysia for the past 10 years, right, in terms of capital gain and even cash flow, is actually a leasehold property. And for investment, leasehold do give certain advantage in terms of entry cost and also rental yield. Although freehold do comes with a better sense of ownership and much more secure type of ownership, and you wouldn't need to have the worries to renew the lease and pay that hefty premium as compared to leasehold. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in my next video.
Please hit the like, share, subscribe button, turn on notifications, and I will see you in my next video.